It was the kind of name that tugged at your curiosity. Elsewhere. A town tucked somewhere in the forgotten underbelly of Kentucky, not found on Google Maps, not mentioned in travel brochures, and certainly not on anyone's GPS. I hadn't heard of it either, until a battered envelope landed on my doorstep on a frost-bitten January morning. The envelope had no return address, just my name, scrawled in spidery ink across the front. Inside was a folded highway map of Kentucky, not the digital kind, but the old paper-type gas stations used to give away. One red circle, drawn in permanent marker, wrapped around a spot on the edge of Route 66, near a bend in the road that most drivers bypass these days. Below the circle, a single word: elsewhere. I'm not a thrill seeker by nature. I don't chase ghosts or hunt cryptids or even watch horror movies past midnight. But I'm a documentary writer, and I've learned to follow the strange roads. This one felt different, obsessively so. I packed a bag, charged my camera, and took off in my old SUV, chasing the ghost of a town that had no reason to exist. The highway out of Louisville was peaceful at first. Smooth blacktop, the hum of tires, the occasional hawk overhead. But about 2 hours in, things started to change. The air grew thicker, like the hills around me were pressing in, and the sunlight seemed to fall in odd patterns through the trees like it didn't know where to land. I passed an old rusted sign, barely readable under layers of grime and bullet holes, but I caught the faded letters just before they disappeared in my rearview. Welcome to not quite visible, almost as if the town was fighting to be forgotten. My GPS went dead a mile later. The road narrowed into a broken, gravelly stretch, barely a lane wide, choked with weeds and branches. That's when I saw it, a crooked wooden pole with a Route 66 marker nailed into it. Not the shining highway shield you'd see on tourist merch. This one looked hand-carved, ancient, leaning into the wind like it was about to fall. I stopped the car. The trees ahead were bent unnaturally, like they had grown that way, as if bowing over the road, forming a dark tunnel into the forest. I should have turned back. But something in the pit of my stomach whispered, "Keep going." When I finally rolled into town, my first thought was that Elsewhere was dead. But it wasn't abandoned. Not entirely. There were houses, half-collapsed cabins with sunken roofs and shattered windows, some still holding curtains in the frames. A rusted mailbox with a name scratched off. A children's tricycle tipped over on the edge of a cracked sidewalk, covered in moss. I parked near what must have once been a gas station. Its sign read, "Gertz Fuel Feed," the letters warped with time. Behind it was a general store, boarded shut. Across the street stood a white chapel, the steeple blackened, no cross on top. And everywhere, silence. A silence too deep for any place where people once lived. No birds, no wind, just stillness. I stepped out, camera in hand, and the air hit me like a wall, thick with rot, but sweet somehow, like dying flowers. I recorded for a few minutes, panning the buildings, murmuring observations for my voiceover. That's when I noticed the curtain. In one of the second-floor windows of a leaning house across the street, the curtain moved, not flapped in the wind, moved, slowly, deliberately, like someone was watching me. I entered the general store. The wooden door moaned as I pushed it open, dust spilling from the top like ash. The shelves were still lined with old cans, rusted labels, peaches, beans, Campbell's soup from the 80s. But on the counter lay something that didn't belong, a leather-bound ledger. It was clean, untouched by time. The pages inside held names, rows of them, dated from 1937 through 1999. People who'd come through, perhaps? Shoppers? But no. The notes were strange. M. Carter, stayed 3 nights, left on the 4th, saw the trucks. L. Whitaker, screamed in the chapel, taken after sundown. Unknown male, never checked out. Room 2 still smells like sulfur. The last entry was dated April 3rd, 2001. He came looking for answers like the others, The road won't let him go. I shut the book quickly. Outside, something rumbled. Not thunder, engines. I ran outside, camera swinging from my neck, heartbeat clanging in my ears. At first I saw nothing, just the crooked street and the old, leaning buildings of elsewhere. Then, far down the road that brought me in, the tunnel of bent trees, headlights appeared. Not one pair. 5. 5 trucks. They emerged slowly, engines growling low like beasts crawling out of some pit. Each was an 18-wheeler, their forms massive and wrong. Too tall for the road, too dark for the daylight. Their headlights didn't shine. They glowed like dull embers in a dying fire. No logos, no license plates, no drivers visible behind the windows. They didn't swerve. They didn't honk. They rolled forward with impossible silence, spreading across the width of the road, pushing fog in front of them like smoke pouring out of a furnace. I ducked behind the old gas station, holding my breath. I don't know why. Instinct, maybe. Something primal. Something inside me said, "They'll know you're not from here." I peeked around the corner as they passed. All 5 trucks turned at once, taking a street that curved deeper into the town. No stop signs, no signals, like they'd done it 1,000 times. Then the air grew cold again and silent. After what felt like hours, I crept back into the street. I had one goal now, to find someone, anyone, a person, a survivor, a witness, someone who could tell me what this place was. I went toward the chapel. It stood crooked at the far end of the town square, its white paint now stained gray and black from rot. The door was already open, just a crack. As I stepped in, a wave of nausea rolled over me. The air inside was thick with mildew and something worse. Coppery, like blood. Rows of pews lined the chapel, broken and splintered. At the front, a pulpit stood with a cracked Bible on it. But what chilled me most was the writing on the walls. Not in paint, in soot, in ash, in something smeared. They come at midnight. The road eats the lost. Drivers never die. Don't honk, they'll hear you. Behind the pulpit was a trap door half open. I shone my flashlight down, stairs, leading into pitch blackness, and then a whisper, soft, faint, like breath over my shoulder. "You don't belong here." I spun around. No one. I left the chapel and followed the path behind it, up toward a decaying building that looked like it once might have been a motel. The wood was sun-bleached, the neon sign flickering with just one working letter. Ectel. Inside, the lobby was empty, but the smell hit me instantly. Sulfur, burning rubber. I crept up the stairs, each step groaning under my weight. Room 2 was at the top, the one mentioned in the ledger. The door was ajar. The wallpaper was peeled and moldy, but something was off. The bed was freshly made, the air was hot. And on the wall, scratched deep into the plaster, were tire marks. Not on the floor, on the wall. As if a truck had driven through the room, vertically. I turned back to leave, but there was a figure in the hallway. Tall, thin, wearing a gas station attendant's uniform, name tag long rusted. His face, obscured by shadow, even though the hall was lit with dying daylight. He didn't speak, but he raised one hand and pointed to my camera, and then said in a voice like gravel, "They don't like being filmed." I bolted, down the stairs, out the motel, through the overgrown lot, back to my car. I threw the camera into the passenger seat, started the engine. Nothing. Dead. Not even a click. My phone? Dead too. No battery, though I'd charged it full that morning. Behind me I heard them again. Engines. The convoy was back, but this time they weren't driving through, they were circling. 5 trucks moving silently, headlights off, forming a slow ring around the buildings, trapping me in the center. The ground rumbled beneath my feet. Dust rose like smoke. One truck stopped. Its door opened. No driver stepped out. But the driver's seat was covered in blood. On the passenger side floor, something was carved into the metal. Once you see them, they see you. I ran, not toward the gas station, not toward the chapel, but down a side path I hadn't seen before, a narrow, overgrown trail behind the motel. Trees pressed in, their branches hanging low like skeletal fingers. I didn't know where it led. I just knew I had to get away from the circle of trucks. My legs burned. My lungs felt like they were breathing in ash. But the engines were fading, and the darkness of the woods seemed safer than the open town. After what felt like miles, I reached a clearing, and there in the center stood a cabin, small, wooden, with smoke curling from its chimney. Smoke. Someone was alive. I knocked. Once. Twice. I almost turned to run, until the door creaked open and an old man peered out from the gloom. "Too late to run, son," he rasped, "but you might as well come in." Inside, the cabin was warm and smelled of burning pine. The man sat me down, handed me a chipped mug of bitter coffee, and lit a lantern. His name was Ezekiel Price, and he'd been in Elsewhere for a long time. "Too long," he muttered, staring into the fire. "I was here before the trucks came." He spoke slowly, like every word was a stone being lifted from a grave. Back in the 50s, Elsewhere was a working town. Small, quiet, mining mostly. Then the mine collapsed, killed a dozen men. The town started to fade after that. But it didn't die. He took a long sip from his mug. His hand trembled. That's when he came. The last driver. They called him Midnight Jack. I stared at him. Was he a trucker? No, not just a trucker, Ezekiel said. He was a courier for the dead. That's what the old folks said. Jack had a rig with no number, no license, and no sound. He showed up on Route 66 every night at midnight, hauling nothing. Or maybe souls. Jack came into Elsewhere just once, Ezekiel told me. In 1959, the mayor made a deal with him. They were desperate. The mine was shut, the town dying. So they made a pact. Jack would keep the road to Elsewhere open. People would always find it. Travelers, drifters, journalists, even YouTubers like you. He smirked grimly. In exchange, Jack got to choose, once a month, one soul. Wait, I said. He was taking people? Ezekiel nodded. Not always locals, mostly those who stumbled in, the lost, the curious, the ones who didn't belong. I shivered. So, the trucks now, they're part of him? He stared at me with dead eyes. No, son. They are him, or copies of him. After Jack vanished in '86, they kept coming, like his deal never ended. I asked how he'd survived. Ezekiel laughed, hollow and dry. Didn't. Not really. I never left, not once. The road won't let me. It punishes those who try to expose it. I looked at my camera bag. He followed my gaze. You filmed them? I nodded. He stood suddenly, crossed to a shelf, and pulled down an old reel recorder and cassette tape. He handed it to me. Play this. If you're lucky, it'll tell you how to break the loop. I held the tape. It had only one word written on it. Jack. And then Ezekiel looked toward the window. They're here. Outside, through the cabin's dirty glass panes, I saw headlights approaching. One pair, then two, then five. They weren't circling now. They were lining up, facing the cabin. Ezekiel lit a lantern, then took a shotgun off the wall. You have till midnight, he said. That's when Jack chooses. Chooses what? His eyes burned. Who stays, who goes, and who never existed. The cassette felt heavier than it should have. Just a little black rectangle, its label handwritten in faded red ink. Jack. My hands shook as I slid it into Ezekiel's old tape recorder. The machine whirred to life with a metallic click, the wheels spinning with a low hum. Then, silence. For a long, unbearable stretch, there was nothing but static. I thought maybe the tape was too old, corrupted. I was about to stop it when a voice, slow, deep, gravelly, like stones grinding under tires. If you're hearing this, it means the road's already taken something from you. I froze. This is Jack. Midnight Jack. I drove the line between here and the end, between towns that forgot time. I made the deal. I delivered what was owed. The sound shifted. Wind howling, chains rattling, something like breathing coming through the speakers. They wanted elsewhere to survive. So I gave it life. But life demands payment. And I always delivered, always. There was a pause. Then the voice grew colder. If you stay past midnight, you'll drive with me. You'll join the convoy. Forever. Static screamed. I hit stop. The machine sparked, then burst into smoke. Get your gear, Ezekiel said behind me. You've got an hour to end this. The old man handed me a burlap sack. Take the tape, he said. Put it where it started, at the chapel. That's where he made the deal. That's where it ends. What happens if I don't? You'll hear the horn, and once you hear that horn, it's already too late. I bolted from the cabin and ran through the woods. The town's outline emerged in the night fog, glowing faintly like it was lit from below, like hellfire under the earth. My camera still hung from my neck. Useless now. I was no longer a documentarian. I was a fugitive in a haunted place. As I neared the chapel, the ground rumbled. A low horn moaned in the distance, long and mournful, like a funeral dirge played on rusted metal. The convoy was moving again. I burst through the chapel doors just as the bell above began to ring. Slow, uneven, as if something other was pulling the rope. 12 times. Midnight. I pulled the sack open and placed the tape, now wrapped in cloth, on the pulpit. Outside, the engines grew louder. Tires skidded on gravel. They were circling the chapel. I backed away as the walls began to shake. Light poured through the stained glass. Not from the moon, but from headlights, impossibly bright. And then, Jack spoke again, but not from the tape, from the air, from the walls, from the wood itself. You brought it back. The truth they buried, the sound they feared. The pulpit cracked open. Inside was an old CB radio, its antenna snapped. The screen flickered to life. Break the loop and the road forgets you. Keep the loop and you forget the road. Suddenly I understood. Elsewhere didn't exist on any map because it existed only when remembered. Jack's curse was memory, attention, the camera, the writing, me. I was feeding the curse. I reached for the tape, and the radio blared a final message. Burn it, or stay. The truck stopped outside, engines idled, waiting. I ran behind the altar, found a rusted oil lamp, smashed it on the floor, and lit the match. The flames licked the tape, the CB, the pulpit. Smoke rolled up in choking waves. The chapel shook. Outside, the horns screamed, all 5 of them, one after another, as if in rage or agony. Then, silence. I woke the next morning in the dirt lot outside Gert's gas station, but the town was gone. The buildings, vanished. The road, paved and clean, no gravel or vines. A clean Route 66 sign stood where the old pole had been. My car started on the first try. My phone lit up. I had one new video file on my camera. It showed me walking into the chapel. It ended with me, staring at the camera, whispering, "If you find this, don't look for elsewhere. Let it forget you." I drove for hours, or at least, I thought I did. The sun rose normally, the highway opened wide, and the signs returned to English. No more trees pressing in, no more flickering neon, no more whispers. The world felt real again, but something wasn't right. I reached for the GPS, typed in Elsewhere, Kentucky, just to see. Nothing. The name didn't exist. The town didn't ping. No Google results, not even in forums. I stopped at a diner outside Lexington and asked the waitress if she'd ever heard of it. She stared at me. "You mean somewhere else, hun?" I shook my head. "No, elsewhere. A town." Her smile faded. She took a slow step back. "Don't talk like that," she said. "We don't say that word out loud." I uploaded the footage that night. Every clip, every whisper, every second of the trucks. Gone. The only thing that remained was the final file. The one I didn't remember recording. The one where I whispered to myself in the chapel. I replayed it. In the background, barely audible, was the horn. One long, low blast. My heart dropped. Because I was already gone, wasn't I? Strange things began to happen. Every night at exactly 11:57 p.m. my phone buzzed. No number, just a message. 1 mile left. The first time, I ignored it. The second time, I blocked it. The third night, I checked my location. My GPS said I was 1 mile from elsewhere. It didn't matter where I was. My apartment, a hotel, even 30,000 feet in the air during a flight. It always read the same. Elsewhere, 1 mile. I stopped sleeping. I stopped uploading. I smashed the camera. Didn't help. One night, desperate, I covered every mirror in my apartment with cloth. I'd read that mirrors could trap pieces of you, pieces the convoy could use to find you. Midnight came, and I heard it again. That engine rumble, like thunder chewing gravel. I peeked out my window. Nothing. But when I turned toward the mirror I'd forgotten to cover in the bathroom. There they were, 5 trucks, driving in a circle behind me, reflected only in the glass. The message changed after the 7th night. 1 mile left. Step out. That was the only instruction. I had a choice. Hide forever, or meet them. So I went out, drove to the edge of town, stopped on a deserted highway. 11:58 p.m. The wind died, the stars went black, and the road lit up, with headlights. They came, slowly, silently, 5 rigs. The lead truck, darker than night, chrome teeth on its grill. It stopped just feet from me. The passenger door opened. I looked inside, and saw my own reflection staring back, but older, tired, hollow-eyed, wearing a trucker cap, my hands on a steering wheel. I didn't remember climbing in, but I did. They say if you drive Route 66 long enough, you'll see a convoy of trucks pass you by. They won't honk. They won't flash lights. But if you look into their cabs and see a face you recognize, and maybe even your own, it means you've seen too much. It means elsewhere remembers you. And once elsewhere remembers you, you can't forget it. Not ever. If you found in an abandoned gas station just off Route 66, scrawled on a torn notebook page, "Don't stop if you see a town with no name. Don't take pictures. Don't follow the trucks. And if someone whispers Jack in your ear at midnight, run. Somewhere out there just a mile away. Elsewhere waits. Maybe you'll see the trucks. Maybe you'll hear the horn. And if you do, don't look back." If this story sent chills down your spine, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more spine-tingling tales. Hit the bell icon so you're the first to hear when the next horror rolls into town, because the road never ends, and neither do the stories.
It's caught in the crossfire.